भाई साहब क्या गेम देख के आए। अगर कल का मैच शानदार था तो आज का मैच लाजवाब ही सही। मजा आ गया भाई। Getting to see two first timers, and that's all we can be here for. We've got Neha, we've got Jeet, we've got Soumi. I might be slightly flustered about how that finish happened and the way West Indies also tried to take it till the end. Kudos to Deandra Doughton. I just hope now, I know this is slightly selfish on my part, but यार WPL कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कैसे नहीं मिला इसको पता नहीं, बट होपफुली दिस परफॉर्मेंस हैज ऑल बट इंश्योर्ड कि अगले साल हमें देखने को मिलेगा डिएंड्रा डॉटन को भी WPL में। जी भाई, Kiwis making it through to the finals, definitely not something we would have predicted confidently, but happy to see them there.
Yeah, big time, because it was not really expected given the run of performances they had for a very, very long time heading into this tournament. So there weren't high hopes for New Zealand, or not many people who are backing New Zealand. And of course, I mean, we've talked about that change of conditions, where they would be happier that it's taking place in the UAE and not Bangladesh, but conditions were still fairly similar to what we would have potentially got in Bangladesh, barring a certain games at Dubai. So for New Zealand to pull this out and make use of that was really, really good. So great on them. Some good plans as well, that they have been dishing out. Some of the bowling plans, some of the key batters of the opposition have been fantastic. And for the team to gel well together and for those things to click that were not clicking before is great to see. So everything is, happening in unison for them and it's clicking at the right time heading into the final.
Completely agree that the parts might not be in place, but the fact that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts is what has really worked for them. Neha, like, मतलब क्या game था, because these are the kind of games we wait for, right? जब knockout matches होते हैं तो लगता है कि यार जैसे कल का match, we loved it. Of course, it was great to see South Africa do the way they did, but there's something about it, thriller, that really gets your juices going.
Absolutely. I think through the course of this World Cup, we have waited for a match like this, which really got us, in all these nail-biting sort of situations. And this match certainly lived up to that billing. I think when New Zealand batting first, just getting to that 120, it kahin lag raha tha, does West Indies have the edge here? Can they actually chase this down? And everything, but the manner in which New Zealand defended that total was just spectacular. I think the bowling efforts and everything, just coming so beautifully well for them. You could see the emotions after that win, and it really goes to show how much it means to them. And this is probably what their third shot at the World Cup. So yeah, definitely exciting sense. And I think Akshay, you must be the happiest of the lot because you were hoping for a new winner, and we're going to have one in. New Zealand or South Africa. So yeah, just very, very excited and looking forward to the final now after this thrilling semi-final.
100% couldn't stress enough on how happy I am about the game. But one person who wouldn't necessarily be that happy is Soumi. I mean, unfortunately, West Indies have not really crossed the line. But क्या match है? फिर भी वो तो बोलना ही पड़ेगा.
यार ब्रिलियंट मैच था और पता है आई मीन व्हाट आई एम फीलिंग अबाउट दिस न्यूजीलैंड साइड आई थिंक वी हैव स्पोकन अबाउट दिस अ लिटिल बिट बिफोर यार व्हेनेवर वी टॉक अबाउट जस्ट टू ड्रॉ कॉन्टेक्स्ट व्हेनेवर वी टॉक अबाउट मेग लैनिंग्स ऑस्ट्रेलिया वी ऑलवेज साइड द एग्जांपल कि हाउ दे यूज्ड टू फाइंड अ वे टू कम बैक इनटू द गेम एंड विन इट फ्रॉम देयर. This New Zealand side is looking exactly like that. They were never on the cards, and in spite of that, how they have found out a way to win important, crucial matches, crucial phases, and come back into the game and win it in the big stage. I think that's incredible, and I think that's where the entire experience of Suzie Bates, Sophie Devine is just coming into the picture and taking them far. Brilliant effort, and yeah, I mean, I would have loved the spirit of West Indies to go ahead, but nevertheless, the way New Zealand kind of took the game today, we are up for some great action in the finals.
Yeah, it is inching towards a fairy tale ending for the New Zealand trio there. I know it's essentially a duo, but मैं Ria Tahuhu को भी वहाँ पे डाल रहा हूँ. Let's see. I don't think she's as old as them, so she might potentially play another World Cup. But it's great to see the experienced duo there, being able to be part of the final. The last time they did play the final was, of course, way back in 2010. We all remember the Sophie Devine and Elise Perry duel there. So let's hope this time around, at least Sophie Devine will end up on the right side of the results. And so would be the case for New Zealand. For the uninitiated, let's have the match summary out. Kahan pe hai? Yahan pe hai. New Zealand won the toss and unsurprisingly opted to bat first. 128 for 9 is what they mustered. Thanks to Georgia Plimmer and Suzie Bates, that opening partnership ensured that they were able to crawl through. It might not have been the quickest of starts, but it was important that they just hung it there and got those runs in. Isabel Gase was a crucial contributor there. A nice little cameo of 14 ball 20 from her. Deandra Doughton, pick of the bowlers. We've spoken about her in the last game as well, especially the way she bowled at the death. Went a long way in ensuring that West Indies were able to restrict England, doing an encore 4 for 22 for her. Afi Fletcher doing her thing in the middle overs, 2 for 23. And Karishma Ramarak, 1 for 11. West Indies in reply was again going to be a very nervy start for them, especially because Kiana Joseph wasn't really able to do what she did in the last game. Got out early on to Eden Carson. And then Shameen Campbell and the experienced Stephanie Taylor couldn't really contribute as well as they would have liked to. It was an interesting change that we will talk about it in due course. But towards the end, it was Deandra Doughton and that brute power of the world boss that nearly got them over the line. It almost seemed like, yaar, acha, abhi to match gaya. Ye to lag raha, this is such a typical chase jahan pe chhakke maar ke jita denge. Unfortunately, one of those Hoyts did not really go as far as she would have liked. Eden Carson, pick of the bowlers for the Windies, 3 for 29, which included 3 of the top 4 of West Indies. Went a long way in ensuring West Indies weren't really able to get off to a great start. Mealy Kurt, fantastic performance from her, and Suzie Bates with that 20th over. Again, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Sure, it warranted that call given the conditions, but Jeet, even then, like, अचानक से semi-final के 20वें ओवर में tournament का पहला ओवर डालेगी, तो शायद मतलब आपने भी expect नहीं किया होगा.
Yeah, I thought it was a huge gamble because, had she bowled a few overs in this tournament leading up to that 20th over, then I would have been a lot more confident with her ability. But given the fact that she hadn't bowled at all, and there was 1 over of Leah Thakur remaining despite her having got hit by Deandra Doughton, I was like, it's a huge gamble. I know it's 15 required. I know it's Zeda James and Afi Fletcher, but it's still a huge gamble. And when that first ball was hit for a 4 through covers by Zeda James, I was like, oh no, dude, this is not how Suzie Bates' career should end in this format of the game. But luckily that experience came through and she was very good at hitting those accurate lines and lengths, because in that first delivery, Zeda James, of course, preferring the offside, had moved across to, make a lot of room and crash the ball through covers. So Suzie Bates was smart enough to follow her on the second ball and cramp her for room. So she targeted her legs and she couldn't, sweep the ball. She couldn't connect at all. And from there on, she had a hold of it. So those last 5 balls were terrific, including that wicket, of course, of Zeda. So that experience did, come through, and that was great to see. But it was still a gamble. I was very, very skeptical when it began, especially after that first ball. But great on Suzie Bates to, actually come back, hold a nerve, and get the job done. So it was good on her part to actually, see that New Zealand actually win it and go through to the finals again. Because last time I think they did it was 14 years ago, like you mentioned. That's the last time they qualified. And even back then, it was the West Indies that they had defeated in the semi-finals. So, for that encore to happen was, fantastic to watch. And with Suzie Bates at the helm of it, right at the back end, and those emotions coming out was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, I mean, they just hope कि इस बार 2010 का final भी repeat ना हो जाए, बस semi-final तक ठीक है. But again, like him Bishop mentioned, they also were able to bury the ghost of 2016, जहाँ के semi-final में West Indies ने New Zealand को भी हराया था. But lot of interesting subplots, we will get to them. Akash meanwhile asking Jeet, क्या लगता है किसको support कर रहे था? Is that even a question? I don't know, Jeet. Fairly obvious, ना?
No, I was still kind of split. I was more than happy to see either of them going through because, of course, New Zealand, there is always slight liking I take towards them because of how much I follow their cricket and have my work. But with the West Indies, I was looking at them as, one of the favorites to head out of that group, which did happen. So that is something I'm very pleased about. But coming into this game, I was very, very split as far as, who's going to go through or whom am I supporting. So it was very 50-50 kind of a call. So either way, I'm more than happy to see one of the two teams go through to the finals.
Chalo, good to see Jeet at his diplomatic best. Moving on, of course, Johnny going on to say, would you really call this a thriller? I mean, this was close, and there was also the India-Australia game, but perhaps all those last ball finishes and ties in the WPL and the 100 have spoiled me. Nothing else feels like a thriller. Sure, यार, I mean, अगर तुम एक टूर्नामेंट के फाइनल में 3 ओवर में छक्का मारते तो अलग लेवल का यूफोरिया होता है. बट ठीक है, जो हमने ये टूर्नामेंट में देखा है, उसके हिसाब से तो relatively this has been one of the closest games we've seen. So again, not really complaining about that. Janvi also mentioning a very pertinent point. Had they stopped giving Player of the Match awards altogether to the losing team, it used to be quite common earlier. If ever a losing player deserved the Player of the Match, it was Deandra Doughton today. Soumi, क्या लगा? 22 ball 33, fair shout. What do you make of it? Yeah, do you think she probably was a deserved candidate for that award?
I mean, that's a no-brainer, of course, and she calls herself the world boss for a reason. Brilliant effort with the ball, picking up 4 wickets, and the way she picked up those wickets and kind of kept on breaking down New Zealand, say, like, significantly. And then with the bat, I think that was the turning point of the match. I mean, I wouldn't say call it a turning point, but that's where the match was actually sealed when Amelia Kerr came in and picked up Dottin. Before that, I think everything was possible. It was also brilliant of New Zealand to bring in Amelia Kerr at that point of time and kind of put a break to the game. But yeah, that's what shows what is the kind of impact she has been having. That that she was just able to break away the game and take away the game at any point of time.
Yeah, Neha, again, Leander Doughton did do well, but in the first innings, what did you overall make of the West Indies bowling effort? Because we'd spoken about how, given the way the New Zealand team stacks up, they've got a lot of these players, especially the likes of Suzie Bates, who takes their time. Plymouth has been in very good recent form, but even then, they're not someone who start off very quickly. Given that, what did you make of West Indies' bowling effort?
No, I think it was a very formidable effort to restrict New Zealand to that total of 128 was quite commendable. I think Chanel Henry started off really well, got support from the other end as well. But again, a lot rested on how Deandra Doughton performed, and she chipped in with those 4 wickets, which was quite imperative for them. Even Affy Fletcher, like we were talking about her in our review show. The kind of performance she put in, again coming in, picking those 2 wickets at the right junctures really, worked well for West Indies, augured well for them in, restricting New Zealand and actually giving them a chance, right? Coming into that run chase, you don't want that psychological disadvantage. Oh my God, we're chasing a total of like 140, 150. And that 128 was definitely chaseable. So, I mean, credits to, the West Indies bowling attack. I think very underrated the way they've been operating throughout the tournament, because more often than not, we just tend to, obsess and, focus a lot on the batting side of things, Deandra Doughton, Hayley Matthews and all of that. But the West Indies bowling attack has been doing their job quite well, and commendably through the group stages on to this one. But today, I mean, they were on the wrong side of the result, but they can certainly take a lot of heart from that bowling performance.
Like bowling to अच्छी थी, but Jeet, in the England West Indies game, we'd spoken about how they'll take a lot of heart from that bowling effort simply because Hayley Matthews and Karishma Ramarak, who've consistently performed previously, both of them did not contribute in that game. Same was pretty much the case, yeah. Hayley Matthews with just the solitary over, Karishma also bowling just the 2 overs. Why do you think that happened in the first place, and how much of an impact did you think that actually had on the overall innings?
I think that primarily happened because Deandra Doughton bowled her full quota of 4 overs and she was on the roll. So I think Hayley Matthews was very smart with her utilization of giving her overs one after the other at the back end. And, whenever she needed wickets, she was providing those wickets with Doughton. So I think that was fantastic on Matthews' part. But having said that, it was slightly puzzling to see, Karishma Ramarak just bowled 2 overs and even Hayley Matthews finished with just 1 over. So where I was kind of surprised was again at the back end, last 3 overs, where Matthews opted for Alia Allen for the third last over and the last over. So I was expecting Allen, but I had a thought that, maybe Hayley Matthews might be a good shot right now. She bowls to death. She can take wickets. It's Izzy Gaze who's batting out there. There is Leah Tahu. So I think it would be a good option for them to go to. But surprisingly, Matthews didn't really opt for that. So that was quite surprising. But yeah, I think that is what kind of caused them a little bit because I hope you're okay. But so yeah, I think that is where I think that utilization could have been different, and that is where probably they lost the game. I would say because when Rosemary Mayer was dismissed, the score read 104 for 6 or something like that. From there on, they had a partnership of around 23 runs, and those 23 runs were massive in the context of this game. And those 23 runs, of course, between Leah Tahu and Izzy Gaze, out of which Izzy Gaze was playing a fantastic knock. So whilst the scorecard may not suggest the kind of impact Izzy Gaze's 20 runs would have had, let me tell you, that was huge. 20 not out of just 14 balls at the back end literally turned out to be the difference between win or loss. So you can keep Deandra Doughton's knock aside, you can keep Eden Carson's 3 wickets aside. The real impact, in my opinion, was Izzy Gaze. That those 20 runs were absolute gold at the back end. So fantastic on her part, but West Indies, yeah, I think that bowling utilization was weird because Chanel Henry bowled those 4 overs, so her quota was done before she got injured. Sadly, it was very unfortunate injury and quite a tough one as well, actually, to watch. But her quota was done. So after that, how she handled the overs of the other bowlers was something she had to take a call upon right at that point in time spontaneously. And what came out of that was, of course, Ramharak and Matthews, two of the best bowlers, not bowling out their full quota of overs.
Yeah, and with Chanel Henry as well, it almost seemed like Jeet had conspired with the universe कि चिड़ी नेशन को हमें देखना ही है भाई, जो भी हो हमें देखना है, and she can potentially hit the winning runs is what Jeet could have, would have hoped for. हुआ नहीं, वो अलग बात है, ठीक है, वो भी बात करेंगे. But sure, West Indies' bowling and the way they use their overs had to do a bit with the situation, like Jeet mentioned, because that made Deandra Doughton seemed in good rhythm. So Hayley Matthews rightfully decided to, take that call of giving her a few more overs. Fair enough. But show me New Zealand's batting itself, it almost seemed like it was going nowhere.
Yep.
Not for, I'm sorry, yeah, Izzy Gaze and earlier on even Brooke Halliday with that 9-ball 18.
Yeah.
Though cameos ke bina, it potentially could have derailed them big time.
Exactly, and I was very disappointed with New Zealand's batting. Like, Plummer had been in such a good form, and we were expecting her to really come into play today. She didn't really come into play. When talking about Brooke Halliday was batting with Sophie Devine, and both of them came in after quick succession of wickets. We all know that Sophie Devine takes a little bit of time to settle down and then kind of come into play, right? And Brooke Holiday actually gave her that breather of a space. She hit those boundaries and she gave her that opportunity so that she can settle down and then start hitting. But didn't happen. We were all hoping that once she was a little settled, she'll probably take the game from there. But we just didn't get to see that. Even Amelia Kerr, every time the batters tried to accelerate the innings, there were quite a few tumbles that were happening, and it was quite a pattern that happened throughout the innings, which was a little disappointing. And as you rightly said, that apart from a few cameos here and there, I think the score wouldn't have reached 128. All thanks to also, I felt that the even that bowling changes at the end of in the last 5 overs, that could have been a lot more tactical. The last couple of overs, I think the 18th and the 19th went for 9 runs each, which were pretty heavy. So yeah, I think all in all, some tactics missed on the West Indian side, and quite disappointed with how the New Zealand batting went. It was, of course, it all the results went their way, but it could have been much better. Even Suzie Bates, the way she got out, I mean, none of them really went along. It was again a very boring display, as we said in the last game.
I mean, that's something we've come to expect of teams in general in this World Cup, given the surfaces on offer. Neha, New Zealand's batting, sure, did not really go anywhere. It's not like West Indies' batting itself was any different. Potentially, it was those two cameos that made the difference between winning and losing for West Indies. Because if you look at the top six, outside Deandra Doughton, no one else had a strike rate of over 100. Kiana Joseph also was bang at 100 with a 12 of 12. How much of a role did you think that played? Hayley Matthews, Shemaine Campbell, everyone else, even who's the other name that I'm missing in their top six? Yeah, Stephanie Taylor, of course. Kisi ne bhi, matlab, because of the fact that everyone kept taking their time, what did you make of that innings as well?
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely one of those high stakes game where you expect all of your top order players to perform, but that certainly wasn't the case. Even Hayley Matthews, a very sluggish knock, right? Like 21 balls में just 15 runs बनाए हैं. And even Kiana Joseph, as much as we were expecting her to come with all fireworks and everything, but again, I think Jeet's prediction was right. Off record, he spoke about how even Carson would definitely dismiss her, and that's pretty much how it kind of played out. And you would expect, right, Shemaine Campbell and Stephanie Taylor to step in. I'm still unclear about Stephanie Taylor's full fitness. I think she is coming into the match with full fitness, but didn't look her attacking best. And the constant loss of wickets certainly didn't help West Indies' cause. And at one point it was like, Deandra Doughton hai, but there's also only so much she can do, right? Because with wickets falling at the other end, and even the pressure, the required run rate pressure also kind of increasing, it would be a very monumental task, kind of get them across the line. At least I think she did play that fighting knock of 33, but lack of support from the other end meant, it was always going to be difficult. And even New Zealand, the way they kind of rotated their bowlers, ensured, they didn't give West Indies time to settle was quite interesting to see. And the way they defended that total, just went on to show that at no point they just threw in the towel and decided, it's going to be very difficult. The match did go, till the end. But yeah, I think West Indies would still want to kind of reflect on this sort of a batting collapse, and would hope this is just a one-off type situation, but also kind of exposes the kind of dependence they have on Hayley Matthews and Stephanie Taylor. So yeah, a little bit of self-reflection would help.
Yeah, so just to continue a bit more on West Indies batting, I think one of the key issues that took place for the West Indies was the lack of strike that Hayley Matthews got. So she was the fourth wicket to fall. And in all the four partnerships that they had till the time Hayley Matthews was dismissed, all four partnerships saw the other batter face more balls than Hayley Matthews. So she was starved of strike. And by the time she got out in the 11th over, she had just faced 21 balls. So on an average, that's Hayley Matthews facing two balls and over. And that's very less. You'd probably want her to face three balls or four balls on an average in an over. So I think she was starved of strike by the time she got on. Then, of course, that shot was out of frustration, lack of strikes. She wanted to hit that big shot. By 11 over at 21 balls, you need to get going, you need to get moving. It was not coming. She finally got strikes. She took on, I think, Leah Tahu, and she faltered there. So I think that was one of the key reasons why it didn't really pan out well for them, because Kiana Joseph is somebody we have talked about. It's either boundaries or dots with her. And in that knockout 12 runs as well, it was pretty much the same, where there were a couple of boundaries that were involved, and then there were plenty of dot balls as well. So at the end of the day, her strike rate was probably 100 or round about 100. And other batters with the same issue. It was Shemaine Campbell, who was set up beautifully by New Zealand. They seemed to have some kind of a plan right from the get-go, and I could see what they were doing, and it worked out brilliantly. It was very evident with how Suzie Bates celebrated, pointing her fingers towards Sophie Devine. So it was good premeditated plan, and it was very well thought out, very well executed. And then Stephanie Taylor walked in. So I don't think there were any injury concerns with her. She was running fine. She was looking all good, but it was again those slow starts from Stephanie that started costing them. There were a couple of attempts where she tried to lace the ball through the covers, but it went straight to the fielder. So she was trying to attack, but the runs were not coming, the boundaries were not coming, and eventually those dot balls were piling up. The required run rate was increasing, and that was also leading to a lot more frustration for Hayley Matthews. So Stephanie got out, and then Hayley Matthews had to start attacking with Deandra Totten at the other end, having just walked in. So none of it really went well for them in terms of the time at which they lost the wicket and the amount of balls that Hayley Matthews got to face till the time she was dismissed. Then, of course, coming at the back end, again, I felt it was slightly weird to see Chidian Nation walk in ahead of Zeda James. Zeda James, for a 19-year-old, has got a fantastic batting technique, miles better than Chidian Nation. And we've already spoken about Nation that there is not a lot that you can expect from her in this particular format of the game. So when you need a very, very high number of runs in an over in such a crunch situation, I don't think Chidian Nation should be your go-to batter walking in at that situation when you have the option of Zeda James. And Zeda James walked in, and we could see the impact she had. 14 of 12 or whatever she made, she was already showing a lot more intent than what Nation showed in those 5 balls. So I think these are minor things where you need to kind of be ahead of the game, and you need to kind of think out really, really well before you make that particular decision. And I think that is where those kind of tactical calls, I feel, were against the West Indies. They didn't really went for the right option at the time. And I think that is what eventually led to this kind of a close defeat for them. Otherwise, it could have, been pretty close, or maybe West Indians might have, got over the line.
Yeah, I completely agree there with the Zeda James bit as well, because once the 5th wicket fell, I genuinely thought that given the situation, she would be a good fit, because pehli baar ek to, in all fairness, I saw her in that South Africa game. Clearly, there was a lot to work with, and her affinity for the offside was something we could see then as well. Not just boundaries, even the singles that she stole were on the offside. She likes to, take a bit of room, make a bit of room for herself, and then, just play at the ball. Same was on offer, on display today as well. But with Chidi Nation, I guess the only thing I can say is, kam se kam se 5 ball rahi wahan pe. It could have been far worse for them. She could have done a 2 of 9, 2 of 10, with West Indies needing a lot more in the remaining deliveries. So, yeah, experience, unfortunately, is what they went for, and that did not work out in their favour. What did work out in New Zealand's favour, of course, was Eden Carson and that spectacular 3-4 from her, which is why she's also our top performer. Show me 3 wickets, 3 of the opposition's top 4 rather, as good as it gets in a knockout game. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's also more interesting for Carson is that every time again West Indies was trying to accelerate. I think couple of her first wicket came in after she was hit for a couple of boundaries, and then again in the eighth or the ninth over when she picked up the wicket, it was again a very similar pattern that there were a couple of break free shots, and that's where she came in and put on the brakes again to the accelerator. So crucial moments, crucial wickets, and of course the if you are picking up top three and then a couple of wickets in the power play, you define the game. So brilliant performance by Carson throughout this World Cup and definitely today.
Yeah, New Zealand will be hoping that she is able to do the same once again in the finals, which is happening on the day after tomorrow, 20th of October. South Africa, New Zealand. बात करेंगे उसके बाद में. Before that, of course, we'll also talk a bit about West Indies and their tourney. It's not like a lot of people gave them, a short chance कि boss ये लोग आ जाएंगे semis में, let alone finals में. Given that England and South Africa seemed to be stacking up a lot better than they were. Jeet, let's start with you. Overall, if you have to look back at West Indies tourney, something they'd be happy about, or do you think something they would want to work on and improve?
Oh no, definitely happy. Absolutely happy because, like you mentioned, that group still did have England. They still did have South Africa and Bangladesh being like in a fairly familiar condition. So you never know that whether it's going to be such a straightforward road for them to make it through to the semis or not. It was still a bit of a question mark. It was still kind of iffy. But for them to still achieve that and also to push New Zealand the way they did in the semi final, I think I would still term it as a very, very good tournament for them because even their journey, just like New Zealand, has not been good over the past couple of years. I know they have got a few wins, but you also need to look at kiske samne wo wins hai. That is also important. But even West Indies have been a team that have been on a decline and their reliance has been massive on Haley Matthews. So if Haley Matthews delivers, you win the game. It's literally been like that for them over the last couple of years. So their decline also has been very, very evident, just like New Zealand. And for both the teams to actually now face off against one another in these semis is fantastic. So great. But of course, I mean, having said that, I would say Deandra Doughton had a huge, huge impact. For her to come in and bolster the side in all the departments was absolutely fantastic to see the youngsters, I would say, coming into the party. Kian Joseph didn't have a lot of role to play with the ball, but for her to, play that one knock in that last game as an opener, for somebody like Zeda James to step in the games that she got, Karishma Ramharak again being fantastic. Alia Aline, I know the numbers, Alia Aline may not have some great numbers, but there is a lot of potential in her. There is no doubting that. She has got a lot of potential. So they had these youngsters also, put their hand up and contribute really, really well throughout the tournament. So they've got a lot of positive signs, and I know they've got some really, really good talent through their under 19 ranks that is coming through as well. They've got some great variety of bowlers, left arm pacer coming through as well. So I think these are still very, very exciting times for the West Indies, and I would still term this tournament as a success for them.
And again, yeah, that's a fair point, right? Because apart from the fact that they made the semis, which is again a great thing to be proud of, but if you just look at the individual performers as well, it's not your usual suspect. It's not the likes of Stefani and even to a major extent Haley Matthews contributing to the side's wins. Like Jeet mentions, it was so many of these relatively unknown names that actually came in and punched above their weight to help them, get these victories. Do you think that would have actually, played a bigger role in them, or rather that will play a bigger role in them, progressing a lot more better going forward?
Absolutely. I think, having like unknown commodities actually come up and perform definitely augurs well for a team, right? Because you always have to look in the future, look at, succession and planning and all of that. And when you have a lot of these players stepping up to contribute, it's definitely good signs. And even just looking at West Indies campaign, I mean, they started off with a very tough loss against South Africa, but the way they regrouped, right, to come back with those strong wins against Scotland and Bangladesh, which were not just like wins, but then the manner in which they went about it was like a massive boost to their net run rate as well, right? After that, they just seemed like a very unstoppable team. And even the win versus England, that I think a lot of people will talk about for ages to come because no one gave them a chance. Everyone was like, "Ha, England jeet jayega." Matlab, I myself, was like, "Yeah, England's going to win." They've won 3 matches and I didn't give West Indies a chance, but they clearly proved me and a lot of people wrong. So I think they have a lot to be proud of from this campaign. It's a team that's, just again developing and hopefully the management does enough to nurture some of these players, coming from that setup as well. They also have a WCPL, and I hope just expands beyond the whatever 4-team model it is in right now. I think yeah, 3-team model, and I think even the WPL can, but that's a discussion for another day. But the WCPL did give us some glimpses of promise and talent from the Caribbean, and I hope it just becomes better and better. But they'll definitely be proud of this sort of a performance in the World Cup, coming to the semi-final. They feel a little bad, but at least they've won one World Cup, and the finalists are vying for their first one. So yeah, definitely a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, Jeet, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add a bit more about the coach as well. I think they found a very, very good coach in Shane Dietz as well, because that guy was living his emotions throughout the tournament. Now he's somebody coming from a background of having coached the men's team and all those associate nations. So he's got that background, but coming into this setup and take over a team that was struggling at a time at a crucial juncture, I think was a commendable job that even he has done. And throughout the tournament, I've seen him, live those emotions, be up and down with whatever's happening on the field out there. And some of your tactics also have been really, really good. So it's great to see that even tonight, when Seda James was dismissed, we kind of knew the game is over. But when she was walking back, Shane Dietz was the first individual to, get up, pat her on the back, and, kind of say that, what, you've done a great job, nothing to worry about. We've lost the game, that's fine. It's not the bigger picture here. It's a great job irrespectively. So for somebody like Shane Dietz, the head coach, to be leading from the front like that and encouraging the youngsters is, great, great sign for the West Indies as well. And I hope that it does bring them a lot more success under his coaching in the future as well.
Yeah, and those are very valid points and important points that Jeet mentioned, because हम ज़्यादातर playing 11 पे देखते हैं जो field पे हैं और वो कैसे खेल रहे हैं उनके बारे में बात करते हैं. But Soumi, again, because Hayley Matthews herself was clearly very emotional at that loss, so they definitely would have wanted to make it through to the finals. But all in all, a tournament to be proud of.
Absolutely, and I think Jeet, Neha, even we have spoken about how their journey has been, and in terms of course, Diana Doughton had a great role to play, but somebody that we have also talked about at length in our conversations was about Affy Fletcher. Such a role she have had to play in this entire tournament. The way, I mean, I was just reading about her and kind of got to know about how she came back into the scheme of things after her maternity leave, and what a role model she's gradually becoming for West Indian women to pick up the game and to excel in it. So I think over and above, they do have a lot of these inspirational figures. Of course, the coach is there, and then there's a set of women who are out there to inspire, and then there's the new age players who are coming up. So over and above, a good tournament for them to take away a lot of positives from. And what I absolutely appreciated in this particular West Indies side was their approach to the game, how fearless, how break free they have been in this tournament. Also, that was the same reason why I felt a little disappointed, because I felt that was it, that was missing in the game, and that kind of made them lose the game today, because they moved away from what actually brought them here. But yeah, over and above, quite a rounded tournament. They should be happy and taking back a lot of positives and coming back much more stronger in the next one.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Next time around, we will get to see a lot more rejuvenated and powering West Indies side. That's happening in England, of course, 2026. T20s की बात करें, ODI World Cup, of course, happening next year in India itself. So देखते हैं how they perform in the upcoming editions, and hopefully they get to play a lot more games. Importantly, performances like these, like Sportsfan also mentions here. Let's just take this comment, guys. We have a completely new World Cup winner. How much do you think this means for women's cricket and its progress, of course? And where would you rank this World Cup in terms of competitiveness as compared to the previous ones? Before I let it open, to our panel, it's not just about the winners. West Indies with a semi-final finish like this that no one would have expected. You would imagine that the board will now, of course, be a lot more supportive and encouraging of them playing a lot more bilaterals. If I'm not wrong, West Indies had played the least number of bilaterals entering the tournament. Least number of T20Is in this year entering the tournament. They played just 8 T20Is. So clearly, that's something they would want to correct going forward. Neha, but again, thoughts on this, because Asia Cup ke time pe bhi we'd spoken about how Sri Lanka winning means a lot more than just the victory, because you would imagine a lot more people would be inspired. Something similar expected here as well?
Absolutely, because it just opens up avenues for not just a lot of fans, but also for these cricketing nations and their boards to invest, right, in bilateral cricket and infrastructure to help grassroots development and just amp up the domestic system. Because when you see a model like Australia, they realized and acknowledged women's cricket way before, than most of your other cricketing boards did, and you've seen the results now, right? It's fairly obvious. So for now, these boards to actually stand up and take notice by seeing their teams do well is definitely a welcome sign. It is great progress in women's cricket, because for the longest time, a lot of people don't follow bilateral cricket. They just see World Cups and they're like, "Ha, Australia jeeta hai." So they only end up thinking, "Yeah, there's just Australia that's dominating, winning. This is a team that you just absolutely cannot defeat." But South Africa, just clearly broke that notion, which was wonderful and remarkable to see. And it's great to see, right, an underdog story. I mean, who doesn't love that? And with teams like this coming up, like we have New Zealand and South Africa, two teams I think no one had on their bingo card would actually make it to the finals, and now this is happening, right? I'm not sure about the viewership, matlab kitne log aayenge stadium mein dekhne, but the true fans of women's cricket will definitely see. But even people of that nation will be so invested and interested to see this, right? I think that is definitely promising signs. And even just looking at it from a South African perspective, I hope this gives the slight push to the South African cricket board, start that SA20, do more for the women's game and in their domestic circuit as well. I think Laura Wolfert has spoken quite openly about it in a lot of pressers and interviews. I hope, a performance like this, again, is a wake-up call to their, cricketing board. So, yeah, good signs to see, teams like this perform well, yeah.
And in fact, just yesterday, ICC also actually released the report on, viewership of women's cricket in South Africa and how it's seen an 83% surge in people responding, and not just about viewership, but acknowledging the fact that women's cricket is becoming an active force in South Africa. The fact that they'd had two ICC events in the last 3 years. There was also the T20 World Cup and the Under-19 World Cup. So both these events had ensured that a lot of people got to know about this, awareness was created, which in turn, led to more people watching and following the team in this edition of the World Cup. Now imagine, perfect storm yahi hoga, with more people watching at the right time. If South Africa is able to win the World Cup, just imagine the kind of motivation it will be for so many of these youngsters who are watching the tournament or following the girls for the first time. So all in all, it definitely seems like it is moving in the right direction, and completely agree with sports fan. We need more teams to be competing at the highest level. So it is always welcome. New winners are always welcome. So hopefully we get to see new winners for the next 3 to 4 years at least, and eliminate the dominance of just 2 or 3. No, I would say 2 teams. 3 भी नहीं है, just 2 teams. It is important क्योंकि अगर T20 World Cups देखो, इंग्लैंड को फिर भी डालना पड़ेगा क्योंकि एक तो है ना, like ODI World Cup so far, the first edition happened in 1973. Only 3 teams have won it: Australia, England, and New Zealand. Even T20 World Cups, it's been happening for the last 15 years. Once again, only 3 teams have won it: Australia, England, and West Indies. So दोनों editions को दोनों formats को मिला दे, that means a total of only 4 teams have won a World Cup ever. So it is important कि we see new winners, we see new teams, which is why I personally again, मतलब एकदम 6D chess मैं भी खेल रहा हूँ. मेरे को South Africa चाहिए ताकि वो 4 वाला number 5 हो जाए. Simply because of that, but I'm perfectly fine seeing New Zealand also win. Always, happy to see that. Anyways, coming back, finals भी है. हम बस यही बात करें कि कौन जीत सकता है और उसका क्या, consequences होगा. But कौन जीत सकता है उसके बारे में भी तो बात कर लेते हैं. Soumi, let's start with you. South Africa, New Zealand, Dubai. It's going to be a power-packed encounter.
Yeah, and I'm not going to predict anything today because it's just beyond. I mean, you cannot put me on a spot and ask me कि कौन जीतेगा. कोई भी जीत सकता है. It's such a big day. It's such a big occasion, and both these teams playing their World Cup T20 World Cup final for the getting into the stage in such a manner. I think anybody can win. If there's a positive when it comes to South Africa, of course their batting in Dubai can be looked upon as a positive. But yeah, आज New Zealand ने जैसे perform किया है, I think they will also get in there with an absolute banger. So yeah, I mean it's anybody's day. So let's see.
नहीं, predictions तो मैं बाद में आपको सताऊंगा. पहले तो मैच के बारे में ही बात कर लेते हैं. But completely agree with you that it is the finals, so it's going to be very difficult to predict a winner because हमेशा बोला है, it is all about trying to make it through to the knockouts. उसके बाद whoever plays well on that day goes through. It's as simple as that. You can't really, talk about systems and processes and whatnot. Jeet, again, South Africa, New Zealand, how are you, seeing this game pan out for both sides or for either sides?
I think the good thing at least is that both the teams have got enough experience of playing in this venue and they have a 100% record. South Africa played 4 games at Dubai and they won all of them, whereas New Zealand have played 2 of them and they've won both the games convincingly as well. So both the teams are unbeaten heading into these big finals at Dubai. So it's going to be interesting, but again, that conditions, toss, all these things will again come into the picture. So it's going to be interesting. What's also interesting is the fact that when the tournament started as a preparation, it was New Zealand versus South Africa. That is the game that took place. So both the teams started with facing each other. Now they will be fighting for the big prize. So that's an interesting bit as well. In that game, at least New Zealand had romped home very, very easily. But back then, the situation was different for South Africa. Now they are in the finals. So it's a different situation. It's a different confidence, a different momentum altogether that South Africa are coming in with. So it's going to be an interesting one. But this is the game where, again, I think it's going to be about the two pace attacks now. If this game tonight was about the spin attacks, this game is, of course, going to be about the pace attacks. The Marzan Cups, the Rosemary Mares, the Leah Tahuhus, the Abanga Kakas. So it's going to be very interesting from that perspective. Now we've also got the opening pairs from both the sides where one of the batter tries to take the game on whilst the other has been struggling to take the game on. Whilst they've been doing their job, they've been amongst runs, but they're still not coming into quick rate. So it's again going to be about Georgia Blimmer. It's again going to be about Laura Woolford. So that is where it's going to be really interesting. Even the number 3 have been very, very similar, right? Annika Bosch and Millie Kerr, both are slow. But Annika Bosch has found that new gear. She literally killed the game and won the game against Australia. So that's why at least she has put her hand up and put in a very, very handy performance. But Millie Kerr, this is probably her best chance to get going and put in that performance with the bat. She's been tremendous with the ball. Of course, she's the leading wicket taker in this tournament, but her as an all-rounder. So when is that contribution with the bat that's coming? If this is the game where it comes, then I think nothing better for New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, with Milika, if my memory serves me right, the last 2 knockout games where she had to bat, the WBBL final and the WPL playoffs game against RCB, she was, in the middle. I mean, she was in the middle. She was batting and she was stranded, unfortunately, when her sides lost. It was Brisbane Heat in the WBBL and then, of course, Mumbai in the WPL. So let's hope for her sake, at least, agar wo pitch mein hai, agar wo batting kar rahi hai, this time around, at least we will get to see her on the right side of things. But Neha, in terms of South Africa and New Zealand, it's not just about, the fact that both sides are coming off victories. New Zealand, sure, this is a morale-boosting win. But South Africa have defended the defending champions. And not just the defending champions, they've defeated behemoths in Australia. Do you think that could potentially have them start off with a slight edge over New Zealand?
I was actually going to say that because Proteas, momentum Proteas, matlab naam mein momentum hai, the kind of performance versus Australia would give them a world of confidence. So at least, my mind was telling, yeah, South Africa definitely start as favorites because they certainly, got a lot of things right in that game versus Australia. And New Zealand has taken cognizance of that as well. But again, yeah, it's tough to, predict a winner because it's just so dependent on the conditions, the toss and everything. But South Africa will fancy their chances. I mean, under Laura Woolford, they look like such an entirely different unit as compared to their 2023 unit, under Sune Lees. And yeah, I mean, they would want to put in that sort of a performance, a memorable one, just go that extra mile and eventually, become the first South African team, men or women, to, lay their hands on this elusive cup. But then you have New Zealand on the other end who have stalwarts, legends, who are waiting to kind of end their career on a high, their T20 career on a high. So yeah, it's definitely a tough one, a lot to look forward to. But I think, yeah, South Africa does have that sort of an edge, having just defeated Australia. And I think they have a lot more things working for them, as opposed to the White Ferns, yeah.
So you see, this is such a, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but you see, this is such a beautiful story. It will be like, in either of the cases, one is a first time captain, the other is the most experienced captain who's walking out. So either of them picking the cup will write a story for ages. So such a beautiful situation to be in, honestly. As
Yeah, I
as
mean,
cricket romantics, yeah, yeah.
exactly. Which is why I was hoping for New Zealand to come in just for this very situation to happen. कि जो भी जीते बुरा तो नहीं लगेगा कि यार इनको जीतना नहीं चाहिए था. जो भी हो मजा तो आएगा. And it's not often that we as supporters of certain teams get to watch a game with complete neutrality. कि यार चलो चौका गया तो support, wicket गया तो support. So that way it will be fun to watch it from that perspective. But Jeet, again, what are you expecting from the game itself? Do you think it's once again going to be a win the toss, bat first, and then take it from that kind of situation? Especially because this is a pressure game. It is the finals of the World Cup.
No, I think what's interesting here is that New Zealand have generally preferred to bat first at this venue and they've won both their games doing the same thing. Whereas South Africa is a team that have liked to chase as well. They've been decent enough in chasing as well. So I don't think a toss is really going to have massive bearing on the outcome of what the captains really want to do. I think both might be eventually getting what they want to do, just like it happened tonight as well. So I don't think it's going to have a massive bearing. Due is something that's out of question because, of course, by now the picture is very clear. Like most anticipated before the tournament, ki DUI and all that stuff, that's out of the picture. They are using the anti-dew spray and it's working its charm. So none of these factors, none of these external factors are really, going to play an influence on this particular game. So it's all about how you tackle the pressure because we've got plenty of youngsters on both the sides as well who will be playing, at the big stage for the first time. I know this is second year in a row for South Africa, but even they would have that playing at the back of the mind that last time when we were here, we lost it. So somewhere it still affects you. But for New Zealand, it's completely, the first time in a long, long time, in 10 years, 14 years, in fact, that's a long time. And with plenty of youngsters on this side playing at this big stage, even I don't think many of them would have expected, themselves to be heading into, this particular date being as one of the two participants. So it's going to be a new challenge. How the likes of Georgia Plymouth take the pressure, how the likes of Fran Jonas or even Izzy Gaze take the pressure is something I'm looking forward to. It's going to be the battle of nerves, in my opinion, rather than a lot more technicalities, a lot more matchups and all that stuff. By starting के 5 या 6 over दोनों innings में, it's going to be a battle of nerves, in my opinion.
Yeah, completely agree with you. That it's all about just trying to be there in the moment and not thinking too much. So fair enough. Matchups are ये सब तो मतलब again numbers data only help you till a certain point. उसके बाद it's all about just trying to be there. Neha, both sides are filled with informed batters, pacers, spinners, you name it. Both sides have that. But are there any names that you think could potentially make a difference for both sides?
Yeah, I mean, for New Zealand, it would be unfair if I don't take Amelia Kerr's name. I think we've spoken time and again of how, she's been bowling so beautifully well, getting her googlies, arm balls, and all of that, working so well. And she's also, one of the leading wicket takers for a reason, right? Has made the most of the conditions, has been able to, just extract so much from the surface. So she's definitely one to watch out for. Even Nora Wolfart, matlab, there were times she was blowing hot and cold, but now, she's coming into her own, leading the side as well. And, right at the top of the order is able to deliver with runs. And even Tasman Brits, guys, matlab, she's still the leading run getter. And I expect her to, get some good runs versus in the final versus New Zealand as well. Want Jeet's opinion on that. But then, yeah, I mean, quite impressed with the way she has gone. Even non-Kululeko Malaba, I think she's been bowling so well. And we see a lot of off-field reactions of her. Like, what a character, man. I mean, an absolute joy to be around. And her contributions on field literally speak for themselves, right? So I think these are some of the very, central characters that I'd be looking out for. I mean, I could say Sophie Devine, Suzie Bates, but then it's expected, yeah. Matlab, they're almost in the fag end of their career. So if they get going, well and good. But looking at the next gen, I think, yeah, these are some of the players definitely watch out for.
Yeah, a lot of names mentioned there. Show me again. X factors. Who do you think play? I mean, in terms of players who could potentially make a difference for either of these two sides.
I mean, it's always very exciting to see the youngsters, but since this is such an important stage and the pressure will be there and the nerves will be wrecking, I will put my money on the experienced ones, and that's a pattern that we have seen across. Whenever we talk about World Cup finals, look at the T20 World Cup men's version, and we saw Virat Kohli emerge in the last game, right? So I think I will put my money on the Suzie Bates and the Marizan Cups of the world, and because I think that's where their experience will come into play. So yeah.
बहुत सही इंटरेस्टिंग नेम्स once again simply because Maizan Cup ये सारे नाम जानते हैं but even then it's going to be difficult because Jeet bundle of nerves is what everyone would be on the day after but one name from either side if you had to pick कौन होंगे
For New Zealand, I'll go for Millie Kerr. The last bilateral series that took place between these two teams was in 2023, so pretty much a year ago because it was in October. And that ended in 1-1. But the one game that New Zealand did win was courtesy of Millie Kerr's batting. She ended with 70 or not out in quick time. And that's the kind of knock that she needs to put in as well. And she will have the conditions as well, which won't be, so much conducive to the bowlers. So she'll have that in her favor. Now, coming to that warm up game that they had as well, it was again Millie Kerr with the ball. So you just cannot look past her. The amount of contribution or the amount of value she brings into this particular side in all three facets of the game is absolutely brilliant. So I can't quite look past her. I know they've got plenty of other players in their side as well that could literally turn out be the match winners by themselves. Be it Rosemary Mayer, be it Eden Carson, be it Sophie Devine, or even be it somebody like Suzie Bates on this big occasion in what could potentially be her last ever game for New Zealand in this format of the game. So anybody can step in, but again, the safer option here. And going by the past records and everything, I think Millie Kerr has got it in her to, put a winning performance in any facet of the game. Coming to South Africa, it's again a bit of a split between Marzan Kaap and Laura Woolward. Laura Woolward has her game improved significantly against those deliveries that come back in because she has made a technical change and that seems to be working out really well, getting a bottom hand and using the bottom hand and flicking the in-swing deliveries or deliveries that are angled in. So that change is allowing her to access leg side a lot more because she was predominantly an offside player. But how does she tackle somebody like Rosemary Mayer, who does get the ball back in, but at 115 or 116 clips? That's a different challenge altogether. So that's where I'm slightly favoring somebody like Marzan Cup. Big occasion, it's a final, and Marzan Cup in the finals is an absolute mayhem creator. She creates mayhem in finals with the ball, with the bat. She takes one spell to ruin the entire opponent. She'll take 3 wickets or 4 wickets in her quota of 4 overs or 20 balls if we are talking about the 100, and she'll win you games right then and there. So we have seen that in the past. I won't be surprised if that happens again this time around. So I wouldn't look past Marzan Kaap and the impact she could have with the ball or with the bat as well.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting names. I'm going for slightly offbeat ones. Jeet, rightly mentioned about Rosemary Mayer and that matchup against Laura Woolford. I personally will be backing Rosemary Mayer to come out on top in that matchup because it won't be easy for Laura. Because again, like we mentioned earlier, it's not about the game. There's so much going on in your head, which is why as a batter, you're reacting to delivery. So the difference between bowling and batting is the fact that in bowling, तुम्हारे पास फिर भी वो time है to act. With batting, you're only reacting to what's thrown at you, and that's where I think Rosemary Mayer could potentially be that X factor for New Zealand because if she's able to nip out Laura Woolford early on in the power play, that means someone like an Annika Bosch will be expected to repeat what she did in the last game. अभी वो होगा कि नहीं वो नहीं पता. Tasman Bits likes to take her time, so which is why it will sort of become a bit too chaotic for South Africa if Laura Woolford is not able to get off to the greatest of starts. So I'm backing her, and that's why I think she could be an X factor there for South Africa. And this is more out of hope than out of sheer, intuition. I'm backing Neri Dirksen for a couple of reasons because I was looking at a few numbers before, before we went live. New Zealand has been the best bowling attack at the death in this tournament. In fact, they're the only side to concede below 6 runs per over. They've been doing very well. On the other hand, South Africa's batting has been one of only 2 sides who've scored over 8 runs per over. And Neri Dirksen, with those cameos especially, is going to, play a very big role. With New Zealand, of course, in the league stage, they had the advantage of playing 3 of their 4 games in Sharjah. 2 of their 4 games in Sharjah, so spinners came into the picture, the medium pacers came into the picture. Dubai, I don't know to what extent will they be able to replicate, that performance. Which is why I think if she's able to contribute, with the 15 ball, 25, 20 ball, 30 at the death, I think that'll go a long way in ensuring South Africa are able to have a score that's well above par. So these are the two names I'm going with, of course. Matlab, more out of hope, pata nahi hoga ki nahi, but I'm always seeing Dirksen doing Dirksen things. तो देखते हैं क्या होता है. Prediction I'm guessing किसी को करना नहीं है क्योंकि सबने बोला कि यार नहीं करना. Fair enough, ठीक है. What I'll ask is, who would you guys be rooting for? ये तो बोल सकते हो, प्रेडिक्ट मत करो, किसको एक नाम अगर लेना ही है, किसी को नहीं, कोई भी किसी को सपोर्ट नहीं कर रहा है.
Cricket is the winner.
अरे बाप रे, सही में.
Both are first timers, and both happen to be nations who do not have a franchise league, and for them to have made it, to the finals and facing off each other is a big thing. So, and that too having defeated West Indies, who have a WCPL, and Australia, who have a WBBL for years. भाई उनको हरा के आया. So we can't be divided over here when it comes to the big finals. I mean, there's a larger picture, to be taken care of. So I'd rather opt for that.
Alright, ठीक है भाई. Cricket is the winner here at cricket.com, and I'm completely up for it. मैं तो चिल्लाऊंगा नहीं, कुछ नहीं कहूंगा. I'm also with you guys on that. I don't think I had a name, in my mind कि किसको support करने वाला हूँ. बस देखना, I just want to enjoy the game. Hopefully we do get to see another humdinger of a game on the 20th of October. Of course, that game's coming live at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time from the Dubai International Cricket Stadium. It's goodbye for us. I mean, it's goodbye for you guys right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like always, please make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, guys. And also subscribe to us if you haven't already. Only one more game to go before we crown a new winner in women's cricket. Let's hope whoever it is wins successfully. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.